I talk about the domestic or the biogas plants, commercial scale biogas plants, where the digester and the gas storage system is an integral part, then it becomes a single phase. Normally, those type of biogas plants are single phase digesters. So the process stability in that case is less. And also the disadvantage is that we have the we require larger reactor volume in case of single phase, and the efficiency is also normally lower. But when we talk digesters, biphasic means the acetogenic bacteria work in one digester tank and the methagenic bacteria works in the other digester tank, and they are connected. So that becomes the biphasic. So normally the biphasic have the advantage that they are less prone to reactor failure for any reason. The startup of the gas production is faster. Normally the gas production initially may take some time in the single phase. It may take about 10 days, 14 days, or it all depends on what is the temperature at that time, how the feeding is done, what is the consistency of the feed material. All these things make a difference. But in biphasic, the starting phase is faster. The gas production takes place faster. Higher loading rate can be possible in this case, whereas there is low loading rate in the single phase digesters. Higher efficiency is achieved, and these type of biphasic digesters are normally recommended for, we can say, better for changing conditions. It is more suitable for the changing conditions. Then we talk about the digester size. We have already discussed about this, I think earlier. Family size digesters, low capacity, institutional size, and then we have the commercial or community size. So institutional stands for a particular institution which is managed by a particular institution body, like there is a cattle shed that becomes an institution. There is a, say, hostel where there are some students residing and we are taking human excreta using for biogas, then that becomes an institutional type. Family type means smaller units for domestic purpose, and commercial or community type where we can use multiple type of feedstocks, and which is normally governed by a community or a society or on the commercial basis. Then we have the solid content type of digesters. So on basis on the solid content, whether it is having solid content percentage above 11 or below 11, 10 to 11 or below 10 to 11. So if it is more than 10%, 11%, then we say it is a dry fermentation type where the solid content is more, and in wet fermentation type the liquid content is more. Then we have the loading rate. On the basis of the loading rate also we can classify. Loading rate means where we have low loading rate, as I have already said that in single phase digesters normally you will have to maintain low loading rate. In family size biogas plants you will have to maintain low loading rate. But in community type biogas plants or the commercial scale biogas plants, we will have to think of high rate biomethanation reactors. So that is the way we can use. Now, any type of biogas design we are taking, we will normally find three systems into that, three subsystems which will become the part or component of our total overall biogas plant design. So one is the gas generation system. Whatever the feed material is collected and has to be fed, that will produce some gas. So the gas generation system will include your foundation, the digester and the inlet outlet chambers of the biogas plant, as well as the gas storage structure. And if we require additional storage units also, we can go for additional gas, because in case we are not able to utilize the entire gas that is produced, then we can go for additional storage, so that whatever the additional gas is coming, it is not let out into the atmosphere, but it is collected, stored in an additional unit, and then we can use it. Feed and slurry handling system will be the second part. That would comprise of the pre-digestion tank of the digester, where aerobic digestion will take place. We have already discussed earlier that some of the feedstock like crop residue, which are totally dry, we may think of pre-digestion. Some of the residues which are coming from the industrial sector, agro-industry sector, or the kitchen waste, normally they require pre-digestion for a certain, and once they homogenize and become stabilized, then we can feed into the digester. So pre-digestion is normally aerobic, under aerobic conditions, digestion under aerobic conditions. Then we require mixing platform and the mixer unit so that the material in large quantity is properly mixed with water or some other material. If there is a multi-feedstock type of digester, we can feed the material properly mixed at a mixing platform with the help of a mechanized mixing unit. Then the third part is the slurry handling subsystem. So slurry, whatever the biogas slurry or the biodigested material, biogas spent slurry is coming out of the digester, that has to be collected, dewatered, dehydrated, or filtered, and then the filter part has to be pumped, the dried part has to be transported or stored somewhere. So that system will be helpful in managing the digested slurry, which is in huge quantity in the commercial scale biogas plants. Finally, third one is the gas distribution and utilization subsystem, where there is gas pipeline and water removers, because along with this biogas there is some water content, some water vapors are there, so you have to remove the water vapors before it is fed into the burners. Gas pipeline distribution system has to be there. Gas utilization appliances we have to borrow, we have to procure, or we have to design according to our requirement. So there would be burners, generators, engines, or compressor, or the bottling unit, whatever is required in this case. So there we want to have
not visual, not visual.
Not visual. Yes. Something has gone wrong. Yeah. So next we come to this comparison between the small scale and the commercial scale system. So small scale, as as the name suggests, it would be a small unit for small group of persons or small family. Then it would be easy to install because of less capacity, easily maintainable, and investment also be less. And biogas can be used mostly for cooking and lighting, or for small scale electricity generation without the purification. Then we have the limited employment opportunities in this case. Entrepreneurship opportunities are also at a lower scale, and limited marketing opportunities for the sale of products. So this is small scale. When we talk about the commercial systems, we have higher capacity systems which is meant for the energy demand of larger population. Installation, operation and maintenance also will require some trained and skilled manpower. Initial investment will also be higher because of larger capacity. The biogas can be upgraded and converted to compressed biogas for meeting the energy demand in transport sector also, apart from utilization for electricity generation or for cooking. Large employment opportunities for all will be available in this case. Sustainable entrepreneurship will be also there because it would be a profit-making venture, and there would be economical benefit also we can derive out of the CBG, carbon credit, electricity generation, and all those things. So that way we can think of going for community biogas plants. What factors the design, because we'll have to decide the hydraulic retention time also according to that waste material. how much quantity of biogas we have to produce, what is the requirement, so that we can decide the volume of the storage system and for what purpose we are generating or we want to utilize the biogas. That will also give an understanding about the economics and the operating system of the biogas plant. Similarly, we will have to also decide what is the appropriate site, because site selection is very important. The site should be selected in an optimum manner so that there is no hindrance in the operational and the sustainability of the plant running, because we require good temperature during the winter, so there should not be any shadow from the south side. Size selection again is very necessary. Appropriate design, we have talked about many designs. We will be talking about other designs also in detail. So which type of design is suitable for which feedstock, what are the pre-digestion requirements, what is the cost involved, and whether there would be any pollution control and reduction of pathogens in that area. All these things will make a difference for the site and site selection. Rate of biomethanation is again very important. Rate stands for the speed at which the organic material gets decomposed, and the digestion takes place at a higher speed in the high rate biomethanation reactors. Conventional digesters require more time, whereas high rate commercial plant requires less time to generate the gas and to complete the digestion process. You can see here there is a requirement, 1/3 requirement in the case of half to 1/3 requirement in the case of high rate commercial plant digesters. Efficiency is also very high. Loading rate can be as high as 5 to 8 kilograms per cubic meter of the digester volume. Gas production will automatically be high because we are producing the gas at a faster rate with more conditions, better conditions for gas production. Operation will be easy and more automation will be there. So on the basis of this, we can say that the size of a conventional digester can be limited to about 100 cubic meter, whereas the size of a high rate commercial plant digesters can go up to 5,000 cubic meter. And it can also save the space requirement. So that way we have to think about the high rate commercial biomethanation plant. In advantages, taking the advantages of high loading rate, less time required for digestion, high treatment efficiency, then less solid discharge post digestion. Digested solids have better properties, and biogas generation is also. This is the flow diagram where we have all the things, the high rate digesters, self-mixing type high rate digesters, and primary or the pre-digestion. Solid waste is put here. From pre-digestion it goes to the high rate digesters. From here the dewatering mechanism is there. Automatic process control system to maintain the pH or the temperature. All these things are there, CN ratio. And we finally get with the biogas in the biogas holder through the biogas line. So this red line gives you the biogas pipeline, and this biogas can also be recirculated inside this to better digestion opportunity in the system. Now we talk about some of the different designs that are available with us. We have the completely steered tank CSTR type of reactors, which was developed long back, about 70 years or so, 60 years back. CSTR consists of a normal simple vessel and a steerer, and this type of digesters are normally we are having the height to digester ratio to the tune of about you can say 1:2. So this CSTR consists of a vessel and a steerer, and it keeps the bacteria homogeneously suspended inside the digester. So there is a steering mechanism, this agitator, which keeps on rotating, and the material inside the kept here, it keeps on agitating. So with the help of the agitator, the microbes do not remain stranded, they are movable, and therefore the gas production rate is increased. The bacteria homogeneously are suspended within the feed material, and this type of actually CSTR designs are normally easy to handle and low cost. Now, when we talk about the disadvantage of these type of digesters, biomass bacteria retention is less. The solid retention time to the hydraulic retention time, the ratio of SRT to HRT is normally 1. Hydraulic short circuiting is also possible. Short circuiting means some amount of feed material may not be digested and may come out of the digester from the outlet side. So due to this, the COD concentration will remain elevated if there is chances of hydraulic short circuiting. Disintegration of the structure by high forces will also take place because of the interspecies hydrogen transfer. So these type of reactors are normally used in our low systems, or where there we have to take this low rate of digestion. Otherwise, we can go for high rate digesters. So this is the type of CSTR which is treating mango waste in the system and producing the biogas plant. So now, high-speed reactor design, normally in anaerobic bacteria, it exhibits lower growth rates. The bacteria under the anaerobic conditions, what we call as the methanogenous bacteria, they have lower growth rates. They have to be retained in the reactor by either immobilization on a particular surface or by other means of biomass accumulation, so that the reactor washout of the degrading bacteria does not take place. So except CSTR, all other reactor configurations that I am talking about now, they normally exhibit biomass immobilization either by retaining biomass or by capturing the biomass and then recycling it back to the reactor. So now we talk about the anaerobic filter type of this reactor, which was developed to treat the dilute soluble organic wastes, which are soluble in nature and in the dilute form. This reactor have a filter filled with rocks similar to the trickling filter. Wastewater distributed across the bottom add to the flow in the upward direction through a bed of rocks. Whole filter is submerged completely with this rock bed, and anaerobic organisms accumulate within the voids of these rocks, or if we have other plastic media, we can also use the other plastic media for filter bed. So that media will hold the active biomass within the filter, and the non-attached biomass will form bigger flocks of granular shape due to rising gas bubble in the liquid. So attached biomass in this case have major portion of the total biomass. 64% is attached and 36% is the non-attached biomass in this case. Now we have the upflow type of this anaerobic filter. Here you can see the process chart, where we have this the digester, where we have the media which is filled. This digester is entirely filled up with this media, and a water bath which controls the temperature outside here. Then we have 3 sampling ports also. We can collect the samples of the digested material for analysis, and the effluent can be taken out from the downstream, and a constant temperature line is provided here which can maintain the temperature. So this type of system is also provided with a heater unit, and the biogas that is generated comes out on the top side. Then talk about the anaerobic filter packaging, which we have already used. Originally rocks were employed, but now some other type of bad material like plastic, ceramic tiles of different configuration have been used in aerobic filters, and this has have higher void volume for the bacteria, and these media provide high specific surface area to the tune of about 100 square meter per cubic meter of the digester, which will be useful in enhancing the biofilm growth. So these are the types of materials, filter packing materials which can be used, different types of materials apart from the blocks. Then we talk about the another type of reactor design which is known as UASB, a very common, very normally used design where the circular tank, the height to diameter ratio of the circular tank is equal to 2. H by D is equal to 2. This was developed in the Netherlands by Lettinga in 1970s. It is a suspended growth system. Hydraulic and organic loading rate is maintained in order to facilitate the dense biomass aggregation known as granulation. Therefore, this type of reactor design, the waste flow in this design is on the upward side. It flows upward through this anaerobic sludge upflow. That's why the name suggests upflow. So through the anaerobic sludge blanket, the material flows, and the sludge blanket have the granules of different diameters, and the granules are bigger in size and heavier. They will settle down and be retained within the reactor. The concentration of biomass in the reactor may become as high as 50 grams per liter. And SRT, the solid retention time, can be very high, even at a very high rate HRT of about 4 hours. So half of the volume of the reactor is comprising of the sludge blanket, and rest half is empty, free. Most extensively applied system, this one UASB is the most extensively used system, and it requires a relatively high degree of sophistication. That's why it is most preferred in the, you can say, food processing industries, where we have high amount of sludge water, and we want to treat that sludge water. In the food processing industries, this would be more preferable, but it is difficult to maintain or control the process, the control.
Dr. Deepak, are you with us?
This is the problem, the sound, yeah? Hello?
Hello, yes.
Sound problem, yeah?
I think there's a sound problem with Dr. Deepak, right?
Yeah.
Calling.
Dr. Deepak, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you well. So I think there's some connection issue. So I'm calling him. So kindly.
Okay. Dear participants, apologies for this disruption. Dear admin, any contact with Dr. Deepak?
Yeah, so I just had talked with him. There was a connection breakage at his end, so he's joining as soon as possible.
Okay. So, dear participants, kindly be patient, especially once we are having this new norm of online sessions and everything. So this has become something which is unavoidable. Uh, so we need to be patient with it, and I hope that he will be joining us soon.
As this can be quite common, maybe it's good for us to have some contingency plans for the future sessions as well.
Yes, sure. I think I have will be discussing with the trainers, and probably I hope that this will not be experienced again. You know, but nevertheless, sometimes these technical hiccups are unavoidable. I mean, this was completely unforeseen.
Nami is from Sri Lanka again. In case other resource personnel who were present yesterday or day before are available, and if the participants have any questions, maybe until such time you can entertain them.
Yes, I can check with the admin. Yeah. So, do we have with us Dr. Pritham Arora? Or Professor Sanjeev Kumar?
So what we're going to do is like we'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes more. If he's unable to join, I believe we have the recording of his lecture and we'll try to play that to make up for the time. I had continuous talks with him, but doesn't seem to figure out like why he's not able to join. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I think he isn't.
Yes, yes. So,
So Deepak, you may kindly share your screen and
right.
switch on. And Dr. Qureshi, in case you're speaking something, you seem to be muted.
So now is it visible, sir?
Yes,
yeah.
it's visible.
Yes.
Yes, may,
So-
may I request you, Dr. Deepak, if you could kindly switch off your video. Probably this might be, I mean,
Okay.
we can have a
Yeah.
good internet
Sure.
speed then.
Sure,
Right.
sure. Thank you. So now we come to the examples of the USB reactors which have been tried elsewhere in India and also in other countries. So these are some of the pictures of the USB reactors in Israel and in India. Then we come to the static granular bed reactor, that is the SGBR. Which has been developed at USA and is just opposite to USB, where the flow is not from bottom to top but from top to bottom, and the bed is also stationary, it does not move. So there is no need of three-phase separator or the flow distributor. It is simple in operation with fewer moving parts, and the disadvantage is head loss due to the buildup of solids within the reactor. So this is the design, and where from the influent goes inside and the effluent comes from this side, and the biogas is so normally we feed the material in the downstream, but here we feed it from the top side. Then this expanded bed reactor is also one of the type of reactor design, which is also uses the biomass and the bacteria get attached on the biocarriers. And the biocarriers may be sandman, pulverized polyvinyl chloride, or shredded tire beads. So this type of expanded bed reactor, there is sufficient upflow velocity is to be maintained to expand the bed by 15 to 30%. And these are some of the biocarriers inside the reactor, which enhances the biogas production. Then we have this fluidized bed reactor, is again a similar type of expanded bed reactor in terms of the configuration, but the expansion is more, 25 to 300% of the settled bed volume, and it requires much higher upflow velocity, about 10 to 25 meters per hour. And the biocarriers are normally supported by the upflow liquid velocity and therefore able to move freely in the bed. From here they can move in the bed, inside the bed, with the help of the up moving liquid, and therefore the gas production, the rate of gas production is again higher. So these are some of the examples of the expanded granular sludge bed reactor for situations where we have less space. The space constraints is there. Then we talk about the hybrid system, which is a hybrid of USB and the aerobic flow reactors. So hybrid systems are also usable, and hybrid system may be any combination of the other two types of reactors that we have talked earlier. So then we have the anaerobic baffled reactor. In anaerobic baffled reactor, the wastewater passes over under the baffles. This is the type of anaerobic. So this type of movement of the wastewater takes place inside the digester. So there are baffles in between which restricts the flow, but the system has horizontal movement of biomass in the reactor. And this is the anaerobic blanket sludge reactor. And this is the biphasic reactor. We already talked about the biphasic reactor, where there are two reactors. In one reactor, the carbon dioxide is formed, released along with hydrogen. Additional reactor, methane reactor, we have the methane and the carbon dioxide is the mixture of that is the biogas that is formed here. And if we scrub out the carbon dioxide, then we are left with the biogas. And from here, we can also take out carbon dioxide as an enriched gas. We can also remove the carbon dioxide and collect the carbon dioxide which is otherwise going into the atmosphere. Now we talk about the operation and maintenance and the feasibility of the assessment of the plants. So how much time it takes to reach the stable steady state? Normally we say that the stable steady rate in a family type biogas plants or a low rate reactor design, it takes around time equal to the hydraulic retention time, like 40 days or 45 days like this. But in high bed reactors, it should always take a less time. So that stable steady state time, when the CN ratio, the nitrogen, the pH ratio, pH value, all these things are stabilized. Assessing the organic loading rate at the beginning. What is the organic loading rate acceptable in the biodigester of a particular volume? That we have to assess, and then we could check whether the given organic loading rate is proper or not. Control of some chemical parameters during the startup. In the starting time, as I have told you, that we may have the requirement of pre-digestion. We may have the requirement of some addition of some nitrogenous material. We may have the requirement of some crushing of the material. So all these process control at the start has to be assessed. Handling of the digested biomanure with high moisture content, feedstock and effluent characterization, analysis for composition of biogas produced. What is the biogas produced? What is the methane content in that biogas? Whether it is rich methane content, high calorific value biogas or not, these has to be analyzed to assess this plant. Whether we could we are getting the right type of biogas or not. Stimulating additives and culture agents for high methane production, and sustainability concepts, including greenhouse gases accounting. So all these parameters, if properly assessed, will suggest that what is the maintenance requirement, how it has to be operated, the plant has to be operated at what loading rate, whether the plant is properly scalable or not, and whether the plant is giving the right output or not. In this, we can also add the analysis of the spent slurry that is coming out. What is the NPK content of the spent slurry? That also we can check. So with this, we have the time for now question answers. Before that, I'll suggest some reference material for this, which I have given here. So I have run fast so that we can go more on the discussion part.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Deepak Sharma, for this presentation. And I apologize all the participants for some small technical hiccup, but I hope that we have covered it very well. So now we are moving towards the question answer session. The floor is open for any questions you'd like to put in front of Dr. Deepak. And today will be, if we'll be having more questions, we can spare the time, some more time, for the Q&A session. So over to the audience. Yes, please. I need some questions from the audience, right? So if we have no more questions, then we can perhaps we can take a short break of 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then we can come back again. And I would like to let know the audience that our second session for today is also very interesting, in which Dr. Atma Ram Shukla, he is the advisor bioenergy from Ministry of National and Renewable Energy in the Government of India. So he'll be discussing on multifarious uses of biogas and its opportunities with respect to power generation in SAARC member states. So stay tuned, participants, and we'll be meeting up again in next 15 minutes. So at the moment, the time here is 3 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, and at 3:15 we'll be starting again. Yeah. Thank you. So we move to a short break. Thank you.
Anything from any participant? Any query?
जी, hello.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Ji, I'm Dr. Sulman Tahir. I worked with biogas sometimes, but what's the real problem is the operational efficiency.
Very right.
Operational efficiency is not with the system. How we can tackle that? I mean, this is the technology of the 70s, 60s, but it's not operating in the industry or in the village. The reason is that there is operating problem. how we can handle that?
This is, you are absolutely correct, sir. The operational, because this is something which is handling a huge quantity of the material. And
Yes.
that huge quantity of material has to be mixed with something. Say, if we use the cow dung, then the cow dung has to be mixed with water. The mixing
Yes.
should be proper so that homogeneous mixture is available. There is no clots, no other foreign material within the system. And therefore, this becomes the process of or the control process or the operation process now has quite improvised. Earlier it was not done mechanically, but now everything is mechanized. Even what is the pH inside the digester at a certain level, that is also known outside through the RTDs, through the system, the control system. Everything is adjusted. Whenever you take any industrial material, industrial waste, there may be some ups and downs in the CN ratio, in the solid content, in the pH. So all these things are being maintained automatically within the system. If we talk about, say, food waste will always have different characteristics. It all depends on the food that is prepared in a particular day. So that also is maintained.
Actually,
We have very successful plants of this nature, of very high capacity, about 500.
so again, my question is again the waste of the mango waste. It's the seasonal 2-3 month season. If we want the commercialize, then we need the 12-month operational plant. So
No,
with
sir.
with the cow dung, what's the problem? The effluent after the biogas production is in the huge quantity, and to handle that one is again one issue. And production of biogas with some high contents of carbon dioxide, that is acceptable. Anyhow, we can separate it and something.
Yes,
But
yes.
what's the solution at this stage? The effluents are the waste after the biogas production, which is the slurry, and a lot of area is required. We are unable to transport from one place to the other.
Yes.
This is the issue.
No, now for the slurry, first of all, let me clear about the slurry. That the slurry dehydration process is now very simple. We can even convert it into pellets. We can remove the water content.
But if you calculate the economics, and economically, after converting, you need some dryers, you need some system for cutting system, crushing system. After drying, you need some processes. I mean, a lot of area is required, and the economics is no more feasible. If, for example, we say 50 kW plant, kilowatt electricity plant, you need many acres to dry
No,
the
no.
effluent.
I differ with your statement here. We do not require any area. We'll
Yes.
just pump the slurry directly into the dehydrator.
Okay.
Whatever the water content is there, that water content will be getting separated. This water content is again very useful.
Okay.
For crops, for as a pesticide or as a herbicide or for seed treatment. This water, exclusively water, is very
Yes.
useful. It has a commercial value.
Yes.
And second, whatever the dried material is available, it gets converted into small densified briquettes or pellets, which
Yes.
are easily transportable, and again they replace the chemical fertilizer. So we'll have to take into account the cost of chemical fertilizer that we are putting into the agriculture. That would be saved, and production will be higher in the case of biodigester. Now I come to your first point of this mango or seasonal waste. So seasonal waste will always be available, and that's why we go for the batch system of digestion, where the same digester is used for one crop waste in a particular season and for second crop waste in the another season. So throughout the year, we have tried this in the our cotton waste. In the cotton industry, we have the willow dust. We call it as willow dust, which is the waste that is available from the cotton industry. That waste needs about 30 days to get digested. So we have prepared 4 digesters simultaneously. Every material that is coming out from the factory is fed into one digester for 10 days, another digester for 10 days, for another digester for 10 days. That way, there are batch digesters of 30 days duration, and it gets reloaded after 1 month. So that way it works throughout the year. If we have crop residue of a particular season, we will feed that residue for 4 months, unload it, then again reload with the other crop waste for 4 months, and then reload it, and that way for the entire year we can operate the plant.
Hello, this is Hassan. May I ask a question, please? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, who's it?
My question to the trainer, what will be the GCV if we can process the waste into pellets for the burning into the boiler? And is it economical solution for the boiler or not?
Sir, can you please repeat with a loud,
Okay.
somewhat loud voice? I am
Okay,
unable to.
let me repeat again. Okay. My question is to you. You said we can process the waste and slurry into the pellets. So is it feasible to burn those pellets into the boilers for?
We will not recommend it for boilers. We will recommend it for agriculture purpose, because this is a organic manure. Though you can burn it, no, there will be no problem. But we want to avoid burning of this waste or this product, at least which contains high nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash content, along with other micronutrients. See, we can provide nitrogen, NPK through chemical fertilizers, but we are unable to provide the micronutrients, 10 micronutrients which are required by the soil for plant growth. That is available in this. So that's why first preference should be given to utilization of this pellets into the field, because they will get dissolved once the water moisture is available. They will mix in the soil and will be utilized by the roots of the plant as the nutrient rich organic manure. So that's why one should use it in place of chemical fertilizers. We can prepare pellets for burning in boilers from other material, loose biomass like twigs, leaves, some small other materials which do not which we want to densify. So we can use the densified material for boilers from other material, not from biogas slurry.
Hello.
Okay, I got it. One more question.
I have a question.
I would like to know what is the GCV of the gas that we produce from biogas plant, and what will be the cost of per MMBTU in USD of that gas, that biogas?
See, the calorific value is normally about 4,700 kilocalories per cubic meter, or in other words, you can say 21 megajoules per cubic meter per kg. This is the of biogas. And when we convert it into compressed biogas after removal of the carbon dioxide and purify it to the content of normally about 95% or so methane, then it goes up to about 7,000 kilocalories per cubic meter.
7,000 kilocalorie
Per cubic meter of biogas.
per cubic meter. And if you can convert it into MMBTU, then what will be the number?
Converted into
MMBTU.
BTU.
MMBTU, million British BTU.
British thermal unit, I do not remember nowadays because we normally use MKS here. So megajoules is the normal unit that we utilize.
Which is 21 megajoules.
21 megajoules.
21 megajoules.
Yes.
And what would be the cost of per MMBTU? Have you calculated the cost of production of gas from this plant?
The operational cost is, cost of production of the gas itself.
Yes, yes.
So if I talk about this in Indian rupees, we spend round about 28,000 rupees for 2 cubic meter biogas plant.
2 cubic meter.
Yes, 2 cubic meter per day. Now that means 60 cubic meter per month. And it replaces 2 LPG cylinders, the domestic cylinders what we use in the kitchens here, which contains about 14.5 kilograms of LPG.
14.5.
So that is replaced. 2 cylinders, 30 kilograms of LPG is replaced with the help of 60 cubic meters of biogas in a month.
Okay.
And this 30 kilograms of LPG, the cost of 30 kilograms of LPG in Indian rupees is normally about, nowadays it is 1800 rupees.
Okay.
1700 to 1800 rupees. So the total investment for a 2 cubic meter plant can be recouped within 10 days, within 10 months after subtracting the government incentive, the financial incentive that the government provides for this type of plant. So 28,000 is the cost. 13,000 we get from the government. So the farmer or the beneficiary has to invest 15,000. And that 15,000 is recouped by way of saving 1800 rupees per month cylinder, 2 cylinders. Or even if we take 1500 rupees, that 15,000 comes back within 10 months. This is the direct benefit. The indirect benefit in the terms of the fertilizer, the organic manure, is also there, is separate. Tangible benefits are there, like environmental pollution and all those things, they are there, which also if we take into account, the economic benefit would be much better. But direct benefit we are taking into account that we can recoup within 10 months, whatever the investment we do here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I think just I would like to delve into this discussion, right? Thank you so much, Dr. Deepak Sharma, for answering. Is there any other questions?
I have one question.
Okay, please go ahead. Kindly introduce yourself and then you can ask the question, please.
This is Barkatullah from Mehran University. Sir, my question is about digestate slurry. So, sir, in cold seasons, the biogas production is very low because of lower degradability of organic material and lower temperatures inside the digesters. So, can we enhance the biogas production through the recycling of digestate slurry again in the reactor?
Very right suggestion. The part of the digestate slurry is recommended to be recycled during the cold winter days. It will enhance and there are other methods also And in high rate digesters, as I have already told you, that we have the provision of maintaining the temperature. So where there is a provision of maintaining the temperature, there the effect of low temperature will not be there. But otherwise, yes, we should about 20% of the digested slurry coming out from the digester could be added to the fresh slurry.
So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. So we have one more questions, and this is the last question we'll be taking up for this session, and it is from Mr. Adhikari. If you could please ask the question quickly.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, I am Sujan Adhikari from Nepal, and I have one question about the calculation of payback period. So, what I want to ask is, while calculating the payback period, should we subtract the subsidy value from the investment, or we should calculate it without subsidy?
So preferably we should go without subsidy, because incentive is another thing. But let us not take into account that incentive, and we should just go on the initial total investment.
Okay.
And then we can calculate. But here, since we have not calculated the benefit of replacement of the chemical fertilizer, that will also add into the income side. So normally we can say that within a month, within a year, we can get the payback from biogas plant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, participants, for these questions. And thank you so much, Professor Deepak Sharma, for this wonderful presentation and also addressing the questions, especially during the break time. Right.